Okay, gents, let's focus now on going up and down the Premier League table. Let's give our score predictions and preview all the games coming up in match week 5 of the new season. Nick, let's start with the title contenders. I guess still early days, but Manchester City, they're everyone's favourite right now to win 4 on the trot. They head to West Ham, which is a really intriguing matchup. Kind of had their number. West Ham of, I don't know. I remember being at the London Stadium for this game last season when they were 2-0 up, and then Man City came roaring back and almost won it. And it's really interesting to me. I think that Man City now have had a few injury issues, De Bruyne, etc., but they keep finding a way. They just keep grinding through. It's almost like they're on autopilot, right? But West Ham's start to the season has been excellent, and kind of they didn't want the international break to come, did they, David Moyes' side? So what do you see happening in this game? And I guess you're going for a City win?
Yeah, I think there's a chance that it's going to be ugly. I think West Ham, I like the heart they've shown. And, you know, like a colleague, Tim Howard, right? He would see a lot of what Everton did in its best days there, but they are ceding possession to teams. And City's got Red Star. They're not going to be terribly worried about what's going on at midweek. I think they're going to come out of the break. And unless this new look West Ham midfield just, you know, has those wrinkles that Man City can't quite recognize because they're not on tape yet, I think it's got Man City written all over it. I'm talking this could be one of those, oh, Jared Bowen scored twice, but they lost 5-2. I think this could be one of those games.
Yeah, I was thinking like maybe set piece situations could be a good way for West Ham to get something out of this. But even then, you look at Man City's defensive record and the defenders they have back there, they do not make many mistakes from those situations. So, yeah, it seems like an easy City win. We talked a lot about Everton against Arsenal on the show already this week, and we all kind of picked a pretty comfortable win for Arsenal, even with a lot of the positive news around Everton with the potential takeover being agreed. And yeah, I think Arsenal right now are just kind of clicking through the gears, getting better each week of the season. And then obviously they had the Champions League to juggle a little bit, but if they can finish their chances at Goodison, then I think Arsenal will win that one quite comfortably. And then, Andy, let's move on to some of the European top 4 contenders. Obviously, Liverpool heading to Wolves. Interesting, right? Because Wolves, obviously, their results suggest that they haven't had a good start to the season. But if you watch their game to game, actually been pretty good under Gary O'Neill and more than capable of causing an upset here. But Liverpool, to their credit, they've been great going forward as well. So Jurgen Klopp must be pretty happy given all the changes, especially in midfield, over the summer to see how his side have started this season. So what are you looking at for this game at Molyneux?
Yeah, Wolves are very much in a transition period, if you will. Like they've gone through a couple of different managers in a short period of time, and they brought in a lot of new players over the summer. And I think they have a good idea going forward. I think they want to have a little bit more possession, you know, not be just strictly a counter-attacking team. And they've shown some good signs early in the season, but Liverpool, I mean, you know, they're in a transition period as well of their own, at least in midfield, and it feels like Klopp is figuring that out. Now the balance is still maybe not quite perfect between attack and defense, and before they get to some of the premier fixtures of the Premier League season, and you know, if they are to be a title contender or a top 4 team this season, they're going to have to figure that out. But I just look at this matchup and I think there's too much up top for Liverpool. Mohamed Salah in very, very good form early in the season. And they're happy to kind of, I don't know, take the game as it comes. They're not pressing, and I don't mean pressing to win the ball back, but I mean trying too hard in the way that Liverpool teams have in the past, maybe. And maybe that's a bit more of the balance thing that we've been looking for to see from them. So I'll go with a 2-1 victory for Liverpool, but one of those 2-1s that looks a lot more comfortable than the final score says it was.
Nick, how comfortable is Man United against Brighton going to be? Because Brighton have caused a lot of problems for United in recent seasons, and they had some great battles at the end of last season. So not straightforward for the Red Devils at Old Trafford. What you
comfortable for who?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I look at this as the moment where you can walk away from a game and feel like a team is for real. We can all agree that we like watching Brighton. We can all agree that they're a fantastic system, and we've heard Pep Guardiola praise De Zerbi for saying he's doing stuff that other people aren't doing. And he's getting incredible from, I mean, Solly March might be the most overlooked superstar in the league right now. His numbers are absolutely insane. and they bought João Pedro. This is one of those games where, and I know Tottenham has a different history, but there was a moment in time where you just couldn't deny Kane. You couldn't deny how good this team looked week in, week out. If they go into Old Trafford and they win this game, you have to legitimately talk about them as a real, honest-to-God top 4 threat.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think it's going to be a draw. I can see a draw with that one, especially United. Just kind of sitting in like they did against Arsenal and trying to soak up some pressure and then hitting teams on the counter. At home against Brighton, Man United sitting in and hitting teams on the counter. Never thought I'd say that, but that just shows, like Nick said, what a great job Roberto De Zerbi has done and is doing down on the South Coast. Newcastle against Brentford. Spoke a lot about Newcastle on PST this week as they look ahead to being back in the Champions League group stage. Again, I think that's a draw written all over it. I think Brentford, they've had a solid start to the season without Ivan Toney. They're finding ways to score goals. Newcastle, bit of an up and down situation. Some of the injuries defensively have caused problems for them so far. And again, I think they have one eye on this Champions League game away at Milan. So I can see a draw there at St. James's. And Andy, Spurs against Sheffield United. Easy home win, right? Tottenham are flying.
Yeah. Look, I've watched Tottenham for a lot of years, and the one thing that I have learned is just when you think that they figured it out and that things are going good and that you know what's going to happen next, you have no idea what's going to happen next. I think they win this one. I think it's much more interesting, much more of a challenge than it probably, all due respect to Sheffield United, than it probably should be, at least on paper. That's why the games are played on the field. There's, just like we talked about with Liverpool, there's a big balance thing going on with Tottenham right now. Like, they are very, very, and I think Ange has to do this. I think he has to go all the way in on, we're going to be exciting, we're going to be fun, we're going to try to win games that way. It's not just about being entertaining, and we're going to try and do it that way, and we will work out everything else as we go along. And I think that's pretty smart. You get the fans back on side, you get the feel good back into the club, and that is certainly happening. But there will be a select handful of games, and Sheffield United kind of, could be a perfect example of that. You don't expect anything from them, and then they just suddenly give you a really, really tough game. So I'll go 3-2 to Spurs. I think a lot of Spurs games are going to end with 4 or 5 goals scored in them this season. But yeah, they are, one of the most entertaining, if not the most entertaining and interesting, at least, team in the Premier League right now.
I think Aston Villa are a very interesting team as well. They're hosting Crystal Palace this weekend at Villa Park, and Unai Emery's done a great job. All the summer signings seem to have slotted in seamlessly for them so far. Of course, they're in Europe. They're back in Europe as well, in the Conference League coming up after this match week of Premier League games. So again, more rotation could go on, but Unai Emery's a master of Europe. I mean, looking at his record, he was talking about it during the week of how many semi-finals and how many finals, how many trophies he's won in his career in Europe. It's pretty incredible to think about that success he's had. But I hate to sit on the fence again, but this feels like another draw to me. Palace are just going to sit in, be tough to beat. Yes, they're missing Zaha, but as a playing well for England over the international break, having him pulling the strings in midfield and the likes of Edwards and Edward, Mateta, I think they'll get enough chances to score a few goals. But Villa as well got a lot of great attacking threats, so I think they're going to cancel each other out a little bit, and I'm going for a draw in that one. Nick, relegation section. I haven't put Chelsea in it because I think they're going to get relegated, but they had a tough start to the season, and they head to Bournemouth, who have had a very tough start to the season. What are your thoughts on that game down at the Vitality Stadium?
I think it's going to be a blowout. I really do. And favorite Chelsea. I guess I should point that out, given the way that the games have gone for the Blues these days. We now have to say that. But I like where Areola could get Bournemouth, but right now, Chelsea, to me, is a team that is waiting to break out. And it's going to be about when they finish their chances. But in games like this, where they get a lot of chances, give Pochettino his due. They are out shooting teams in open play. They are out XGing teams in open play. I've said it before, if Nkunku's healthy, they might be right there on those teams with 10 points. But somebody's going to finish for them. And I think either way, it's going to start this week.
Yeah, to Nick's point there, Chelsea 5th best expected goals in the Premier League this season, 3rd best expected goals against. So the results have certainly not matched what some of the numbers and the performances have probably said. And I think we lose sight of that because of all the money spent, and we want instant results. And that's not quite been the case, but I think much better times are coming for them.
That's true. My point on Chelsea against Forest, obviously Matt Turner played really well in goal. Forest were really good on the counter and took their chances. And Nicholas Jackson just had an off day in front of goal, but is a very, very good player. And like Nick mentioned, when Nkunku's back, I think it's totally different for Chelsea. So don't panic, Chelsea fans. Don't panic. Not in the Forest against Burnley. Poor Burnley is all I'm going to say. I just think they are trying to play a brand of football that isn't going to get them very far in the Premier League. They ripped up the Championship last season under Vincent Kompany. I'm just intrigued to see if they kind of take their foot off the pedal a little bit, the accelerator, and say, you know what, let's just kind of make other teams make mistakes and try and make the most of them. But Forest, I think, going for a third win in 4 under Steve Cooper. I think they made some savvy additions around deadline day. Yes, losing Brennan Johnson was a big deal, but they have enough players there, I think, to stay away from the relegation scrap this season. And it's a great opportunity for Forest to get points on the board early in the campaign, so they're not scrambling mid-season and towards the end of the season like they were last year. So I can see nothing other than a Nottingham Forest win in that one. And Nick, Fulham against Luton. Finish off this section for us, mate, here, because Full America, losing Mitrovic, Palhinha, the uncertainty. He stayed in the end, but looked like he was going to go to Bayern. Just a weird summer for them. And for Luton, again, kind of like Burnley, not quite sure where they are. They're like, we're in the Premier League, but we didn't expect to be here. And now what's going to happen? And it's just a little bit too much too soon, it feels like, for Luton. But take us away on this game and give us your prediction.
Yeah, listen, I've been pretty impressed by Carlton Morris. And I look at what Fulham has, and you might want to score early. You might want to seize control of the game at home and make the other team feel bad, because there's a little bit of Mikel Antonio in Carlton Morris, and he really works hard. I don't know. This is going to be the season for Luton.
Do it, Nick. I know you want to pick it.
I do. I want to pick Luton to win it, and I also want to tell you that I think Carlton Morris is, come the summer, especially if Luton stays up, going to drive some interesting conversations, because he just has that sort of English Premier League thing about him where you're happy that he's on your team. And at 27, he's in his prime. I don't know. There's a Vardy, there's an Antonio, there's something about him that I've seen, and he's been really, I think, one of their bright spots. And I think they're going to get it at Fulham.
Wow. Big predictions there on 2 levels from Nick Mendola. Luton are going to get their first ever Premier League win, and Carlton Morris is going to win the Golden Boot in the Premier League. That's
yes.
Heard, right?
Yeah. Probably the Ballon d'Or. Yeah.
Why not? Why not?
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long. And for even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock. And be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend on USA Network and on Peacock. We will see you there.